Welcome to Rappler Talk. I'm Pia Renada, and we're here today speaking with Assistant Secretary Jonas Soriano, who is the spokesman of Cabinet Secretary Leoncio Evasco Jr. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Ako, magandang umaga.
So we're going to talk to you today about the role of the Cabinet Secretary. So Cabinet Secretary June Evasco is one of the closest friends and part of the inner circle of our President, Rodrigo Duterte. So we want to know more about his role, exactly what he does, and how are we on the programs of the Cabinet Secretary. So I just want to start off with asking, why did Secretary Evasco decide to have a spokesman to begin with?
Oh, well, originally there was none. If you look at what was promulgated by our Executive Secretary, there's only one spokesperson for the Office of the President. And there was also, during that time, Secretary Andanar, who was also head for the PCOO. But during one of the programs of Secretary Abella, they wanted to know more about the social agenda. And there were a lot of questions pertaining to what is his stand on certain issues, especially since he also holds on to a group of agencies. So immediately after that interview, mukhang natuwa sa akin. So anong nangyari, he came up with a memo somewhere in, I think, August. And he said, you are my spokesperson. So whenever there are media events, ikaw na yan. Si Cabsec is not that, when he talks to media, he doesn't want to always be there. I think a large part of it is his belief that we want to really encourage. There's only one president. He also wants to encourage that, as Cabsec, he is not an implementer. We integrate, we harmonize, we put things on agenda. So, ang bida dapat should be the different secretaries. So, my role really is, if there's a need that things must be clarified, I do it for him. If he wants to do it, of course, siya talaga. No? Most of the time, the media want him, but because he's so busy, that's when I'm given that role.
Sec Evasco is kind of someone who prefers to be in the background. What I've heard and from what I've seen from his work, he tries to be in the background always. Is that why also he prefers another face to face the media?
I can't say that he prefers another face. You know, I think it's more the two issues are different. One is the issue of should he be really on the mainstream. My understanding is he wants to make sure there's only one president. Even in the office of the president, where there are several secretaries, he doesn't want to appear, whether in public or private, to be the one. Everybody has an ear to the president. And the second one, I think that's very important, is maybe because of a lot of agencies that are under him, and that people go to his office day in, day out. They even visit him at his home.
Wow.
So his problem also is keeping in touch. So instead of saying, my presence is not there, Jonas, you take care of this.
So parang alter ego kanya?
Hindi rin alter ego.
Oh.
I do not make statements without his knowledge. If I make statements, I make sure it still follows his general rules. He has told me time and time again, number one, we listen to the people. Number two, we encourage the change. Number three, we're very inclusive. Number four, which is the most important, hindi tayo ang bida. Ang bida, si Presidente, ang bida, ang ating mga secretaries.
Because in the past, the Office of the Cabinet Secretary never had a spokesman. I think this is one of the first times that, this is the first time that there was a spokesman because nga of all the agencies he's had to be in charge of.
Yeah. I think it's more because of that. Well, it's a nice job, but very engaging. But in the end, I don't want also to be just like, I don't want to be saying that just because I'm the spokes, I'm the one speaking for him. No. I always make sure that if he has time, it should be him.
So, sir, what is the role of Secretary Evasco within the Duterte administration?
a large part, si Secretary Jun, you really love how, and you really be in awe when you are with him. Um, he's the guy that if you look at him, he has the ideas, but he's so humble. So, to my understanding, a large part of his role, initially he was offered some cabinet positions, but he didn't like.
Which ones were?
Of course, I'm not sure, no, but I heard that initially, before the campaign, he was offered the ILG, he didn't like it. Kasi ang laging hinahanap niya, bakit siya? But I think the stories told to me, when he was offered already CAPSEC, knowing the role, he said, okay. And part of it really is his role, our office, is supposed to harmonize and integrate the different activities of the different cabinet level agencies. If you count the agencies, national agencies, by office, I found out from just looking at the performance bonus, mahigit 1,000 yan. Every government entity is considered an office. Every SUC, every LUA, every national office. So, ours is the ones that are at cabinet level. So, we're supposed to make sure that these activities are harmonized. We're also trying to make sure that how do we encourage more getting out of the silo approach? Which is, this office does this work, this office does this work. What can we do together? Certain programs, certain areas, since issues like poverty are multidimensional.
Right. So may collaboration dapat.
Yes, yes. In fact, that's the nice thing about the work. We are not, you don't see us, but we try to help the secretaries in doing the work that they want to do based on the instructions of the President. So we know that everybody, when they were hired by the President gave them specific instructions, each one trying to fulfill them. We want to encourage, okay, if it's health, nutrition, you cannot deal with health and nutrition just by the DOH. How to bring them children who are malnourished. It's not only the issue of feeding them, but also educating them. So these are the things that we want to encourage. More bringing it to a higher form of convergence at the cabinet level.
Okay. There were several executive orders which expanded the powers of Secretary Evasco. So how is he dealing with all these responsibilities? Let's start with the first EO, which gave him 12 agencies that are focused on poverty reduction. So how is he dealing with all the work?
To tell you the truth, minsan naawa din kami kay CAPSEC. Imagine mo, okay lang if you have one department and then, you have your USEX and ANSEX. But can you imagine he holds on to 10 to 12 agencies? He has with him HUD-C that has 5 to 6 agencies. Then he has us that have 4 offices. So it's like every day, there could be several meetings. Ma'am Pia, you try sitting and discussing every meeting and they change every day. After a while, you get tired. But he shows the energy in trying to push for what should be. So a large part of his day is really trying to fix up the schedules.
How many meetings does he have every day?
Sometimes, he tries to bring it down to 3, but it can be 4, it can be 5. Sometimes it can be from 8 o'clock
AM.
up to 9 o'clock
PM.
And it's hell in terms of his schedule. And he's not that young. But what's nice about him, he's at the office 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Basta may recognized appointment siya, he will not leave until he meets with him. And sometimes there are some appointments that they just come. He makes sure that someone is there to meet them, or he himself. And that's where you, if you were to describe his day, it's really a day-to-day thing that I don't know how he survives every morning. When I see him every morning, he smiles. Oh, Jonas, how are you? Okay. Then when we talk to him, okay, this is what what do we have to discuss? All of this.
When does he get to talk to the President? Or does he even have to talk to the President on a daily basis? When do they interact?
The President to my understanding, the President, Secretary Bongo, Secretary Mandia, they have their own ways of contacting each other. Our CABSEC, normally during cabinet meeting, um, they're always seated together on the side. Um, if there's a need to work out arrangements, then he sets appointments. He makes sure that if he needs to talk to the president, he still goes through the normal protocols. And then when the president needs him, he calls. I remember one time, one of the staff were telling me that at 3 o'clock in the morning, the president called him about this issue on the budget of Yolanda that's not being used. And that was 3 o'clock in the morning. So they are able to communicate that way. It's a manner in which the cabinet secretary and the president, maybe because of their so many years as friends, as colleagues, as part of local government, that they have ways of making sure that they're always in contact.
So they also, I'm sure, because Secretary Evasco was also used to be the administrator of Davao City.
Yes.
They also have or the chief of staff of the president when he was mayor. They sort of have parang harmonized their way of thinking, perhaps, like all these years of managing a city together. Perhaps now they're bringing that harmonization to the national level.
I was looking at the few interviews he did, talking about this administration and talking about President Duterte. And I really noticed that they have almost one mind in how they look at things. In fact, I have a better appreciation of the president because of CABSEC Vasco. I think it's because they went through time together from the time that ang arresting saka nagpo-process sa kanya si President Duterte up to even when he became mayor, and then later on he wanted to also work in Bohol. They still kept in contact. So it's that kind of understanding that they have together.
Right. Let's go now to the cabinet meetings, because we also know that Secretary Evasco plays a very big role in cabinet meetings. What exactly are his tasks when it comes to cabinet meetings?
Through the special assistant of the president and PMS, they try to make an agenda. The agenda must be vetted. It must be good enough for discussion. When you say good enough, I mean it must be so what will be the output or outcome of that agenda. So they prepare it, and with the help of our office, because my boss, Yusek Mercado, is also his alternate during the cabinet meeting. CABSEC decides, okay, this agenda is good. So his role is to make sure that when there's a cabinet meeting, the agenda, when discussed, will produce whatever outputs and outcomes needed, both by the ones that are requesting that is included and what the president also wants.
So, Sap Bongo tells the cabinet secretary what the president wishes to tackle during a certain cabinet meeting. Is that correct?
Hindi naman tells, but kasi there's a system and part of that system is the initial vetting is through the Office of the Presidential Management Staff, of which Secretary Bongo is also part of heading. So, ang nangyayari when it's proposed to CABSEC, there already is initial staff work done. So that when the agenda is already on board, you have the normal, okay, this is the agenda, which points should this be included or not? That's when the president said, oh, that is okay. If there's none, let's move forward. So it's that way.
How many days in advance is the agenda formed?
Well, they want to do it in a way na sana 1 week before and even 2 weeks before meron na. What the system that CABSEC has been encouraging is there's what we call a cabinet assistance system, and there's a cabinet cluster system. The cabinet assistance system is made out of the undersecretaries and assistant secretaries that know what is happening in the different departments and, more importantly, have a direct link to their secretaries. They try to make sure that any agenda that's proposed to the junior cabinet has already been vetted, has already have the complete data, so that when presented, hopefully it's only 5 or less than 10 slides, so that discussion will ensue. And this process, through the cabinet assistance system and through the cabinet cluster system, helps in trying to make sure that agenda gives a lot of good outputs and outcomes after each. Once the agenda is put in and then it's discussed, there are decisions. This now is followed through.
During the cabinet meeting, there are decisions made.
Yes.
Okay.
So most of them are directives. And to tell you the truth, the nice thing about this president, you have a frame of not only looking at the national and international dimension, but you have a frame of looking it from the local government perspective.
Kasi he was mayor for
He was
2
mayor
decades.
before, so he knows where the bottlenecks is. He looks at it from the framework of where's the issue, what's the role of the LG, what's the role, and then he also has this very important aspect of making sure that the poor are always at the heart of what he's saying. The issue of drugs are also at the heart. So when you look at it, what the CABSEC does is to make sure that, okay, when this is discussed, naayos na ba yan? Are all the data complete? What have, no, and this system, which we're still enhancing with the help also of the secretaries, and now that we have a new EO, EO 24, we hope to further improve the system so that we can really get more agenda. Actually, not more agenda, more quality agenda on hand. The meetings, the first few meetings, sometimes would last from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock.
2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Wow.
3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. We're trying to make sure that after a while, how do we bring it down? Because, there was a lot of excitement.
Of course, first few months pa
Everybody
lang.
wanted to be in the meeting. It's...
So how many people are in the meetings usually, the cabinet?
Well, it ranges from 32 agencies.
Oh, and people.
And then you
Per agency may representative.
Siyempre the cabinet.
Yes.
So the cabinet level are there. The staff you can't fit them all. So they're outside. Then you have the ones making sure that they capture the essence of the meeting and the specific points that came out.
Who are these people? These are also.
So most of the
you
time
said-
it's from the presidential management staff and some from our office.
Okay.
And when this, especially from PMS, they've been trained for that for the last so many administrations. So when they get that on board, immediately after a cabinet meeting, there's a CAS meeting. They follow through. These are the
No
decisions.
matter how late the cabinet meetings end, there's always a cast.
Usually it's 1 week or 2 weeks after.
Okay.
So the idea is, before the cabinet meeting, there's a CAS. After the cabinet meeting, there's a CAS. So after the cabinet meeting, it's really, okay, these were the decision points. What is your office doing? Have you already done this? Oh, this office, you're supposed to do that. This is the directive of the president.
Just may follow up.
And then there's a follow-through.
After the meeting.
In fact, there are some issues that take time. So the secretariat always flags us. And we're supposed to make sure, even before the CAS meeting, we already give feedback to the CAS secretariat that this is what we've done. If it's not forwarded there, during the meeting, they must have an answer.
How many people form the CAS?
Dito mas malaki. I
Okay.
think the last count I heard was around 38.
All of these are USECs,
USECs
assistant
or
secretaries?
ASECs. The idea really is it should be at a high level so that when discussions are made, these are the people, as CABSEC Jun would say, these are the people that really know operations.
Did the Duterte administration improve or change any system or policy procedure in the CAS? Because the CAS has been in existence for a long time already.
I can't totally say that they changed. What I can comment on is based on what I've heard from those in the past, it's the way the decisions and the urgency is being done. I mean, the president, when there's a decision, he wants it implemented. And I think it's because of his knowledge in the LGU that he is working on making sure each and every department do this. Imagine, Pia, no? In an LGU, it's smaller. So he brings it up to the national. Suddenly, DA has so many employees in one office, or DAR, or DNR, or DSWD.
Yeah.
So this is the decision, how this is implemented. Then this is also reported to the president. So he wants action done. I think that's where the difference is. The difference is also, I've heard that different presidents have their own style. Some have clusters first, CAS. Some have cabinet meetings. Some naman have smaller meetings. They don't want too much of the cabinet level.
Yes. So si President Duterte
President is every month there must be a cabinet meeting.
a full cabinet
A
meeting.
full cabinet meeting. In fact, if I remember right, how many? I don't know if it's 11 or 12 already.
Now it's already 15, including the special cabinet meeting.
Yes. So, how many months? We're only 10 months. 15 cabinet meetings. Average of 4 to 5 hours.
Wow. Has it shortened recently? The cabinet
Trying.
meeting?
Trying. Because every time there's a meeting, it's not business as usual. It's not like, I've gone to a lot of meetings, whether private, corporate, NGO or LGU, or even national government agencies. Normally, it's like, reading of the minutes. No, here there is parts like that. But it always goes down to the meat of it. We have to discuss this, what's the decision.
Can you give us a picture of how a typical cabinet meeting works? What happens?
This is what I gather, what I've seen so far. Usually the meeting starts in the afternoon. And when he comes in, a simple guy, when he comes in, he walks around the table, shakes hands with the different secretaries, asks them how they are. He goes to some of us. Sasabihin niya, wag na kayong tumayo. Say, okay lang. And then, after that, there's a short prayer. Normally, there's already a secretary that does it. They even prepare for that prayer.
The secretary.
The secretary. Kasi, siyempre, secretary level eh. So, the ones that can speak in the table are only secretaries. So, even if you're a USEC, it's still a secretary that has to sit there. What the Malacanang had already was, there are protocols. Some of the protocols like, how far or how close are you seated to the president? Depends on when your office was actually put in the law.
agenda. In the law?
Oh,
Or-
kasi if your office is new, you're farther from the president.
I see.
So, initially there was a discussion, I should be closer to the president. But in the end, the protocol is, whoever office was there first will be closest.
So it's cabinet secretary beside the president, ES.
ES,
From what I see.
so-
Also, sometimes si Sec Dominguez is very near the president.
So, again, these protocols are very important kasi everybody is treated equally. But how do you decide where people sit? So, how to arrange it in a way that, in a small room like this where they sit that way and then that they all have time for them to speak. Then, can you imagine a meeting of more than 25 executives wanting also to comment? So, that's the exciting part. So, what we're trying to do is, again, how do we also make sure that these meetings really go at the heart of what should be discussed?
When the president wants to interject, of course there are presentations by the secretaries. When does he give input and how does he give input?
It depends. It's a meeting that is managed, but at the same time, when he wants a point in, sometimes he would interject even before it starts.
Even before the presentation starts?
Sometimes he would interject but most of the time he would wait for a presentation made, comments made by the others, then he would interject.
Has he ever expressed anger? How does he want to express, like, for example, disappointment? What if a presentation doesn't please him, what does he do?
No, the nice thing about the president in the meetings is very passionate. He shows emotion in each and every agenda, even though he's tired. So, he's not into, the details about if pangit ang presentation mo. No, it's more on, okay, are we agreed on this? Because I want to know if this is okay with you. Or, when will this happen? Because I think the poor cannot wait for that decision or that thing to go in. That's where he interjects. Or, we have to do this because even whatever you say, we still need to make sure that we're secure. This is where he brings really his way and his brand of managing the meeting. So, you may say we are just like a gatekeeper. We don't, we don't have a monopoly of saying this is the agenda alone. Because sometimes, the secretaries would really want this already part of the agenda. They would go to the president, but the president will say, okay, talk with June because this is the cabinet secretary. Let him make it an agenda. CABSEC naman looks at also how do we do it in a way na things are decided upon with more clarity, with more synergy.
So, President, because we know that the former President, Aquino, was very paid attention to the numbers, the details. He had a photographic memory and he would remember even the smallest numbers, and he would know if the numbers in a presentation were wrong or were inaccurate. How about the President? Does he have that same attention? Or what is his style of evaluating a presentation, a policy during a cabinet meeting?
To my understanding to what people are saying, how I listen to him, he has portions of that, but he always brings with him more, how does this all fit together? What are my promises that I said I would deliver? And then he relies a lot also on those that are the specialists in the cabinet. So when it's economic, then you have the economic team. They present. If it's social, then it's the social group that presents. So his way of managing is he looks at it strategically, but also, if needed, the decision on a tactical basis, on a day-to-day basis also does. But the nice thing about it is it's also a way for the secretaries also to present how they see it. There are a lot of stories where, once in a while, because you have a nice mix of the cabinet. And that allows for a lot of the dynamics, how decisions are made. Sometimes a decision, which are very strategic, he would really push, this is what I believe in. And then there are times, some of the secretaries will have to talk, how will we also convince the president on this? A lot of the times when they present it in very good numbers, which we try to make sure of, and very good, the president says, okay, I think we have to do it that way. So how do we move forward?
So the president sometimes changes his mind when he is convinced during a cabinet meeting. There are times like that.
Yes.
He is convinced.
Yes.
He can change his mind.
Yes. Maybe that's the reason why, because in the end, when you listen to the president, when you listen to CABSEC John, this is why it's very important for people to understand. There is no little presidents.
All right.
There are the different cabinet secretaries that have to do their job. They were all hired by the president to make sure they do what they're supposed to do, mandated to do.
So no little president, meaning there's not one secretary that has the ear of the president more than the others? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
because everybody has an ear.
How about Secretary Bongo? Wouldn't you say he has more of
because
an ear?
because he arranges the appointments of the president, he has the advantage of always being with him.
Yes.
But in the end, what he tries to also to do, when the different secretaries want to also make sure that they're part in meeting with him, he makes sure that they have time. So, I can imagine, I think, Secretary Bongo is the one that's trying to make sure also each one of the secretaries want to talk with him, the president. So,
course.
I can't imagine how he does it, but miraculously, he makes sure. So when things are needed, he finds ways for that to happen. On the other hand, this is the nice thing. Each one is, even before they came in, they were given the mandate. I put you there because this is what I want. Some of them, they presented what they wanted. Okay, if you're going to do that, this is that. And then if there are times that, he has some comments, sometimes he will just call the secretary.
He will just call. So outside the cabinet meeting, make
That's
coordination.
the stories that I've been hearing also here. So you have a very good dynamic president. Then our CABSEC would like to make sure that these avenues are kept. There are no, what you call this, cordon sanitaires. But someone has to make sure, syempre, the president eats, sleeps, goes to meetings on time, goes, and I think that's the role of Secretary Mongo. Someone has to make sure all the laws, all the EOs, all the procedures are followed, and that's Secretary
Okay.
Montaldia. Someone has to make sure that the agenda is okay, that this can be discussed, and then that's Secretary Jonas. And then each secretary has their own money. Then if they have issues that go to other departments, they still raise it. But again, one of the forums is really through the cabinet. But that's not the only forum. There's also the cabinet cluster.
Yes, which we'll go to now.
Yeah.
I was about to bring up EO24. It's a new EO, and it reorganized the clusters of the cabinet from the original 5 of President Aquino to 6. And there are 2 new clusters. There's the infrastructure and the participatory governance. And you mentioned before that this was an initiative of Secretary Evasco. Why did he think of restructuring the cabinet?
Well, one of the ideas really of this administration was really, how do we bring back faith and trust in government? How do we listen? To my mind, in the local government, I remember one of his meetings with me, which was last week. He said, in local government, there's the social, there's the economic, there's the financial and planning. So let's arrange it in that way so that in the end, we have more things done. What we must encourage more now is people's participation. It's people's way of being heard. I think the past administration was very strong in trying to push for the procedures, the processes, and making sure that you limit corruption. Now, this government wants to continue on that, but push for people making sure their voices are heard. We have a lot of laws. There's the local government code. But the only way we can bring back faith and trust is to make sure that these mechanisms happen. So one of the groups that was created was the Participatory Governance Cluster. Very different from the last cluster of former President Noynoy Aquino. Instead of calling it good governance and anti-corruption, it's now participatory governance. The good governance is going to be part of all the clusters.
Yeah.
Because the President has always said, anti-corruption is anything you do, I also put you in, I can easily also take you out. So don't do anything. So the participatory governance is for ensuring all levels of participation happen within the mandate of the laws. The other one that's very strategic was the infrastructure cluster. With Build. We're only talking now of the 57 or 59 projects. My God, if you go through them one by one, there will be a lot of implementation issues. Things that we're still trying to change. Some have so many steps. So there's a need to try and work together to make sure these infrastructure projects can really work. One example, yesterday we had a ICC meeting for NEDA. And when I was talking to one of the undersecretaries for DOTR, they said, we want to work on this program where we are sure these are the number of families that will be displaced. Sabi namin, let's not wait for a rally because they're displaced. Let's make sure now that we're not only building houses, we're building communities. Because what happened before, they would build a house. But most of the time, walang kuryente, walang ilaw. Sometimes the site would be so far. Now, what is being encouraged is how do we do it in a way that when they move to a different location, that they will live there. And CABSEC has an idea that, how do we bring back the dignity of people? Even our design of houses, normally it's just a space, But in the end, mga Pinoy, they want a house where you have a small garden. So the idea is, through the infrastructure cluster, when these big programs happen, we already from the very start are making sure that people get involved and the people benefit directly from it. That's the challenge. Because before, in some cases, if you're assigned with a road, okay, I have the money for the right of way, I have the money for the resettlement, but the resettlement is only housing. Now it shouldn't be that way. Ngayon, this goes back again to participatory governance. Because sometimes, as government officials, because we're very used to doing our own, we need also to listen to what the community is saying. And that's where participatory governance comes from. The other clusters also have their roles. There must be a focus on all these projects. I mean, you cannot do a project economically that you're not clear why. Does it have economic and financial internal rate of return? So all these work together. So I think that's the new thing. And what we are hoping for now that we have an EO, that one of these days will be calling a meeting of all the chairmen of the clusters and all the chairmen of the heads of the secretariats of each cluster, so that we can further improve the system. When I say further improve the system, how again do we make sure we can make the actions as fast as possible?
Just focusing on the term participatory governance. This is a sort of a catchphrase now in the Duterte admin, especially when it comes to the office of Sec Evasco. But how do we operationalize this term? I mean, what does it really mean, participatory governance? How on the ground level do we include the voices of citizens in government policy?
Number one is, during the elections, a lot of people mobilized on their own to capture the voluntarism of people to really make change. So that will mean when some of the people from the upcoming office will be appointed, will come in, they have been talking about organizing and mobilizing these people to also work with programs of government. But how to encourage them without getting paid? Second, there are avenues where they must engage. The local government code allows for representatives, different mechanisms for people to talk. And then there are, some of the issues are also systemic, meaning there is this process. They must have an avenue with the right official to get things done.
So basically, the OPG will be in charge of operationalizing existing codes like the LGU code to make sure that the citizens, for example, an LGU, are consulted before a particular project is implemented.
And doing it in a way that, again, we're back to what is the law. Kasi as we encourage people to change, people to move, we want to make sure that they do it within the confines also what should be. So sometimes there's a thin line. But in the end, how we work closely with the local governments, because they have their autonomy, will be a challenge. I think what we're seeing now is people already see that changes are happening. And they see the president as the one leading it. Now I think that the transition is, how do we make sure people also change? I remember one of the Secretary Dominguez would say, It's about time people should learn to complain. It's about time people should stand up.
So who will head this OPG?
That's still being worked out. Hopefully once in the next few weeks, we would have already an undersecretary. And we're excited that they can come and play. Kasi once that's in, we will have a clear understanding of the structure. We will have a clear understanding also of how people will operate, so that we further integrate how things are done.
The citizen complaint hotline will be under OPG?
No,
No, not yet.
the mechanisms in CABSEC, we have two major outcomes. One is how we do it at the cabinet level. The other one is how we encourage people's participation. A mechanism to encourage people's participation is 8888. This has a system. The system that they've created already is when there's a complaint, what happens to that complaint, what is done, what is the action, and then from that action, what happened. That triangle approach on how to do each of the issues. So 8888 will be separate from OPG. Kasi OPG is going already to the areas, encouraging people to mobilize, to organize, to join government programs, to join. But 8888 is the complaints. Hindi, may problema ako sa aking kailangan ko ng dialysis. Or, grabe naman, hindi man lang ako sinilbihan. Or may issue ako sa ganito. Or, alam mo, may corruption, may ganito. These are the 8888 issues.
Okay.
The important thing is, what the President wants is, whatever he did in Davao can be done also at the level of the national government.
So this OPG, does it have any relation to the Kilusang Pagbabago, which is also trying to gain more volunteers from all over the country to support the Duterte admin? May connection ba?
Participatory governance means looking at all groups to participate. Kilusang Pagbabago is one section
Of that?
of that.
Okay.
Meaning, there are groups that have formed their own Kilusang Pagbabago. Some of them are chapters, some of them I heard even one has their name registered in SEC.
Wow.
No? So, these are groups, most of them that were part of the campaign before, that are trying to carry through after this election.
Is it right to call it a political party?
No, because if it's a political party, then you'd see, people. You would see, like I know some of the sectoral parties or the the party list. You would know if it's a political party if what's the political agenda, and then from there, what are the mechanisms? No,
Wala siyang...
I see it as of people wanting to be part of continuing the advocacy, continuing with the agenda that the President has promised he will implement in these next 5 years.
Okay. Going to the latter part of our interview, just to focus now on the big picture, since the Cabinet Secretary is also in charge of the policies, the long-term plans, the roadmaps of the Duterte administration. And you mentioned the Philippine Development Plan, which will be launched today, right, the 2016 to 2022. Basically, parang it's a harmonization of the poverty programs to make sure that by 2040, middle-class society will dominate the Philippines. But also there was this survey a while back, I think it was in April, published in April. It was a Pulse Asia survey which showed that there was eroding trust among the poor with the Duterte administration. The survey showed that Class D Filipinos, the respondents from that class, pulled down the overall survey numbers, trust figures of the president. What do you have to say about this?
Well, first, let me clarify. The ones leading in the planning, there's really NEDA.
Okay.
It's not from CABSEC that the plans emanate from. It was part of the process put in by Secretary Pernia and his people. That after 5 months, we came out with a PDP that will be launched today at MOA. So this is what's going to guide us as a blueprint. The second one that is most likely to be launched later on will be the national security policy, which naman will, what our office is trying to do. How can these two documents meld? Because the belief is you cannot have development if you're not secure. You cannot be secured without development. So these two have to come together. So the question you're raising about the comment of why Class D, I don't know exactly how this was done, but we listened very much to the pulse.
Okay.
You know, it's, if you look at expectations, they're really very high. So the difficulty is you're not anymore talking about 2,000 employees, 12 departments, 20 departments. You're talking about 1.2 million, of which more than 600,000 are the National Executive Department. So, sa common tao, ang gobyerno is the president.
Yes.
So, when he came in, they really expected, you know, so all issues, the president will find the way. So, kami, we've been trying to listen. Where are the complaints? Are they really being acted upon? Right now, we know they are, but you know, we still have to fix up a lot of things. Like right now, we still have a problem with our own 888, and hopefully, with the help of the two big providers, telecom providers, we can actually get more number of calls.
What is the problem now?
It's, well, the system is still initially based with civil service. We're working on making sure that we have more lines. I don't know the technical part of it, and I hope one of these days you can invite a person in charge of 8888. But to my understanding, the difficulty lies with the current system cannot absorb too many calls. So we're trying to build on that, and then we also want to make sure that, you know, which department really has, you know, the most complaints.
Which is the department now? I think there was a report about that before.
Yeah, ako ang importante, that's also being looked at, and then we flag. We try to flag it so that the system, the departments try to improve. So I think the reason why this is happening is also the expectations. And some when I talk with people from 888, James, they would always tell me, you know, sir, it can be a complaint, it can be an issue, it can be just venting out.
Really? People just want to rant.
Oh, you know, whenever the president makes a statement, suddenly calls, emails rise.
Really?
Yeah.
On the 888?
Because the 888 has an email, it has a text, it has a call.
What do people say?
Ay, iba't iba. They would just vent out, bakit ganon? Or we support. Sometimes the best way to gauge it, it's also the same pattern in Facebook or Twitter.
Okay.
You see that also, because not everybody is in Facebook and Twitter. Not everybody has this. So they use that as a platform also to exchange. So I think that's the reason. And that's the reason why the president keeps on telling us, and Section keeps on telling us, how can we do things faster? How can we make sure this is happening?
Okay. We're now on the 10th month, going on 11th of the administration. So it's almost a year. Where would you say we are in terms of implementing these long-term plans, fulfilling the overall promises of the president? Where do you think we are?
We're sure already in terms of, one, we laid down the foundation, which is the plan.
Okay.
Naunang magsalita ang kanaming group by saying this is what prospectively will do for the economy. One, we want to make sure that we have still the same faces and there will not be radical changes. But there's a strong infrastructure program that we will push for the next 5 years. Very developmental, meaning how do we make sure that change really happens in that place. The second that we're now trying to work on is what has not been heard so far. There are a lot of accomplishments by a lot of our departments. but because the noise is focused on sometimes what the president says, it's not heard. A while ago, I met with Secretary Mariano of DAR.
Yes.
He told me there are a lot of stories about, the issue of land. And for the first time, a 92-year-old hadn't received this land.
I read that report.
Yeah. Or we went to the SWD and they told me, for the first time, we realized that there is still an unserved group. And we want to serve them better. All these services, it's social, burial, issues from the PWD, issues of senior citizens. We want to bring that now into fore in a way that we are showing that, there's things that are being done, but we need to do more. The challenge of this administration is not only to show the growth, but to show the inclusiveness. In the last administration, it was very strong in terms of anti-corruption. So very strong in showing that there was economic growth. But they also admitted that the question of inclusiveness was a little lacking. We would like to make sure those two come about. My personal assessment is, I think the plans are there. We want to see how this 1 year 2017 budget will run. Because our promise is this all must be utilized. Spent well, no corruption. There's a lot of targets. So what we've heard is we're still a little bit slow. But what I'm getting to see is that there are a lot of accomplishments. Ngayon, people are also moving towards what is felt on the ground, not what we are doing. There's a difference. I can say I built a health center, or I built a hospital, or I built a disaster center. But if it's being used, if the services reach people, is another thing. So more and more we are asking the agencies to focus also in that. And they also want that.
To understand the ground situation, the ground situation.
Make sure the services are being felt.
Are being used.
Are being used. It's not anymore, okay, I constructed, so what? Okay, I made this, so what? In fact, the challenge, we have a lot of challenges. I mean, just to hit 6 million poor out of poverty, my God, that's a challenge. It's a lot of debate on it, but how do we do it? How to make sure we're not only focusing only on 4 Ps, that's 4.2 million. But how many really are the poor that are not part of the 4.2 million? How many have backslided? How many have problems? So these are the challenges being faced by each and every agency.
It's interesting you mentioned how there are a lot of accomplishments and progress, but a lot of focus seems to be on the president's words.
Yeah.
Could you expound on that a bit more?
Well, we can't take out that, the number one newsmaker is still the president. And as a president, that's really what he wants to do, is something that he makes sure of. And if I compare it to the past presidents, I've never seen a president that does it that way. Maybe a little of President era, If I were to look at it, most of the presidents, they would have a press secretary speaking.
Yeah.
But this president comes from a trip, he reports. Goes today, he reports. And then, kaya pagod si Secretary Ernie, he also has to amplify or at the same time make sure he presents it the way the president does it. So, what gets picked up is what he says. Not because it's only him, but he wants to say it. So, this is why I think he's also the number one newsmaker. Ngayon, we know at our group that it's not enough because there are a lot of things that are happening. So I think that's the reason why Build is there. Because it's a group of secretaries saying, there's another program happening. Okay. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, we will get the social agenda part out. What is happening to anti-poverty, education. Ayun, the school opening is happening. Have we achieved the K-12?
Yes.
How about this question of the free tuition for college? We want that out. We also want it out because in the end, people have to respond. You know, DepEd has the biggest number of government employees. It's nationwide. You know, we can't be everywhere. So the more we make people, we reveal or we show what we're doing, the more we can also get feedback. So in the end, we're looking at that challenge. That's why a lot of us, you know, the spokesperson, Sir Ernie, together with Secretary Andanar, has formed this spokesperson's bureau where we coordinate.
Really?
We work together, we try to show each other's message.
When was this created?
If I remember right, this was, there was a workshop that was done early part of this year, led by our spokesperson.
Ernie Abella.
Ernie Abella. But before that, through PCCO, I remember, I think ASEC or USEC Pebbles formed this in a group in Viber.
Okay.
And we've been exchanging information. Like, you know, we have a nice mix kasi of a lot of people. We have those that came from the past, those that came from the very, very past, and those that have now been appointed.
So there are also former government officials in that group.
Yeah, so the ones that are in the past, we always say, you know, one of our difficulties is sometimes in order to show my position, I have to share another government agency that might not be doing the work. We don't want that. Because a lot of the issues are also linked there. Issues of DepEd sometimes linked with issues of construction. Issues of DOH linked with DepEd. So the idea is to try and coordinate also among the spokes. Oh, what are you saying? Oh, sige, teka muna, I'm going to say this. Am I right in saying, what are you doing there? So that I don't also attack you in the process.
Is this something used a lot by Secretary Abella?
Ah, yes.
He always asks.
Secretary Abella, Secretary Andanar.
They always ask, they always clarify on this group.
Because we want to make sure that we have a message of what is happening. The nice thing about this, the president doesn't want PR, public relations. He wants the truth. So the system is built so that what are you saying? What should we be saying? And what we cannot say, how do we fix it so that, you know, we don't ultimately hit one another? Because like a reporter will say, but you know, we heard from ganitong that this is what you're saying. So what's your comment on that? We are trying to also get our act together.
Do you send each other statements through that group?
Yeah, we do. So I regularly see, okay, you know, this morning, what happened in the Source World?
Yes.
It was already in the group. So and
You're all on the same page.
we're all on the
any
same
issue.
page. So if we are consulted, we know.
How many spokespersons are in that group?
I think more than 30.
Wow.
I hope you can talk to Secretary Andanar and Secretary Ernie about that. It's a nice group because we also try to understand. One of the things that we had to go through together was, do we really understand this administration? How do we see it? And then how do we make sure we're also on the same page on how to present this issue in a very, you know, I don't know how to call it, the truth. How do you say the truth? But in a way that says that we're not selling ourselves. We're encouraging others to listen and to make sure that they also can comment and give us complaints.
Did any incident catalyze this decision to get the spokespersons together to coordinate?
The first was, to my understanding, Secretary Andanar's group wanted to make sure that the spokespersons had links to one another. Secretary Abella naman wanted to make sure that we have one message in a way that we complement each other. So I think those were the two reasons why this came about.
There are no specific incident. Parang what's the reason?
No, it was more because I think the reason was also, you know, it's difficult also to get on the front page. Especially if you have a project and then the president will be there every other week. So you want to present these outputs, but front page you can. So there was a clamor from some of us to say, how do we get also on the news, even though each one has their own link? And then more importantly, understanding where is the president going with this, how will we also deal with it if, questions are asked to us. So these were the issues that came about. And
Interesting.
it's all of us, we look at the link to know what's happening every day. Sometimes very difficult kasi daming agencies. You see it on a daily basis. Okay, ako, after a while, I had to tell my staff, can you look at this? What did I miss? Kasi ang dami eh. So these are the events that post it. And now it's moving towards, getting the message across and making sure the balance between what we are doing and what people want. I think, Ma'am Pia, that what is we need now is more and more people telling us if we're doing things right. If,
Feedback.
yeah. Kasi dati ang feedback, parang, yung labanan sa social media, pro or against. Now it's a question of, for us, especially for both the new and the old officials, meaning those that have carried on across administrations. Suddenly they're saying, mukhang maraming maitutulak tayo ngayon. So, especially every issue is treated with urgency. So that's why what is happening is this kind of congruence and confluence of events that are making people want to work with each other more. This thing, I teach before on public management. We've always been saying, it's good that we converge. But our system encourages more the silo approach. I'm seeing in this administration, without let's judging the past, I'm seeing more of this kind of working together happening. And that is encouraging. We have to do this to make sure that not only the president or the secretaries or the USECs or ASECs or the newly appointed catch the bug of change, but everybody does, down to the clerk, down to the janitor, are also on one page. And doing it also from within. The biggest challenge is really the mindset of the Pinoy. The biggest challenge is to try and say, are we worth these Philippines? Where in other countries, they're proud to be Singaporeans, they are proud to be Malaysians, they are proud to... Here, we have difficulty even convincing people just to walk on the pedestrian lane.
Right, the discipline.
So, it's going at the heart of that. Because in the end, why are we like this? Why hasn't change happened? Why is it all other nations have overtaken us? And if nothing happened, Laos would be ahead of us economically. It's because it's also mindset. So this is how we're trying to look at things. Can we change the mindset of the Filipinos to say, okay, let's do it. Ngayon, what is also happening is there is ownership and passion for that type of change. And that's where, I think personally, that's where the debate happens. I want it this way, we want it this way. The president wants it this way, the other person wants it this way. And then you come in with the media, and that's where a lot of things. But I think the essence pa rin is, I'm telling you, you see at the heart of a lot of government employees wanting to do something for these 5 years. And more, before we were the only few appointees. We were the second batch. But now that more and more are getting appointed, everybody is doing it. It's like a virus where everybody is trying. And lucky for us, if you look at the past presidents, they've pushed this from Marcos to President Cory to all the presidents. They've done. Now that we're here, how do we make sure that 6 becomes 7, that 7 becomes 8, that 8 becomes 9? But not only in GNP, GDP, how do we make sure people are not 2024,
The
like
inclusiveness
2040.
you spoke of. Yeah.
That's the difficult part.
That's a
And-
good message to end with. I mean, that's basically the message of coming from the Office of the CABSEC, how to make everything inclusive with participatory governance.
And that's also the message of our president.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we can really do it in partnership with media in order to do this. Because I know also in media, there are a lot of people that also want a change. But you know, it's a democracy, so sige lang. Ang importante is we in certain issues, we can really show what is happening. We can improve on explaining to the people that they too cannot just be bystanders. They must be part of it. It's not anymore just elections. It's now making it happen. Don't only depend on the president or the cabinet secretaries. If there are long lines, complain so that those long lines will disappear. If there are agency officials that are not doing their work, tell us so that we can also do the right work so that they change.
All right. Thank you so much, ASEC, for all your insights. I mean, giving us the inner workings of the Office of the Cabinet Secretary and the Cabinet and even the President. So thank you so much for those insights.
Okay.
So you've been watching Rappler Talk. We were speaking with Assistant Secretary Jonas Soriano, who is the spokesman of Cabinet Secretary Evasco. Thank you for watching.